everyone, Gaara here, welcome to a brand new video. Today I'm gonna analyze Pavel's HCT run, and without further ado, let's get right into it. The first thing I have to say about Pavel's HCT summer run is, spoiler alert, he won the playoffs with an impressive undefeated 10-0 run. So what did Pavel do what all the other players couldn't do? I think it is worth to look into Pavel's lineup and try to find out if he's doing something better than anybody else. Right now he looks very unstoppable and he's the most consistent player in the world. The current world champion making it again to the regional is nothing less than absolutely impressive. Let's get right into his lineup. As you guys can see, Pavel went for the classic Jade Druid and Kazakus Priest as everyone else. But what is super interesting is, the other two remaining decks, Shaman and Handlock. First of all, Shaman was underperforming for every other player. Pavel is the only player with Shaman in the top 8. And not just that, didn't just end up qualifying and went out of the Swiss bracket with a 7-0 record as the #1 seed. He also ended up winning the entire tournament, which is absolutely insane. Shaman turned out to be a bad meta read and everyone else was underperforming except Pavel. Same goes for Warlock. There was only one Warlock besides Pavel in the top 16, I believe, and it is old school Handlock without Molten Giants, and this is just absolutely impressive. So on first sight his lineup looks extremely weak and vulnerable to Mage, to the Burn Mage, Freeze Mage or Kazakus, Jaina control mages. But it doesn't matter because it is Conquest. He can just take the loss and just get a win against the other decks. If this was last hero standing, I'm pretty sure he would go for a different lineup. But it's still extremely interesting to be like this weak to one quite expected deck, and it didn't seem to affect him at all or his performance. So let's get right into the first deck that Pavel decided to bring, which is the Jade Druid. Everyone decided to bring a Druid for this tournament. I think his Jade Druid list is not as important as the other decks, just because every player banned his Druid and he also went for a Druid ban. But if someone is like stupid enough to leave his Druid open, he decided to go for a very anti-aggro list. He has the double spreading plague as most people. He went for 1 Primordial Drake instead of 2, but he included 2 Doomsayers, Gluttonous Ooze and Spellbreaker. This tells me that he wanted to be very strong versus Pirate Warrior, because he included the Gluttonous Ooze. If you include the Ooze instead of Harrison, usually this is a tag against Pirate Warrior. If you want to be strong against Paladin, Control Paladin and other weapon classes, you usually go for the Harrison Jones. Gluttonous Ooze gives you the health gain and that is mostly relevant versus the Pirate Warrior. So he was thinking that if someone leaves his Druid up, the chance is extremely high that he has a Pirate Warrior in his lineup. Hence the double Doomsayer super anti-aggro list of the Gluttonous Ooze. And on top of it, he believes that the lineup should have a Murloc Paladin. So this is why the Spellbreaker. He didn't expect people to bring Aggro Druid, is what those tech cards tell me as well. Because against Aggro Druid you would really like to have 2 Primordial Drakes. He expected most people to have Jade Druid, but this doesn't even matter if people have Aggro Druid. I'm just saying if there would be an Aggro Druid, he would probably consider to not ban it. The primal strategy was to go with a Druid ban. So the second Primordial Drake seems to be absolutely unnecessary. It seems like a perfect Jade Druid list. If it doesn't get banned, that it will definitely fulfill its role. His next deck is the Kazakus Priest. Most people decided to go for the Kazakus Priest, around 60%. It was the best performing archetype in the tournament just because Jade Druid was banned every time. You were kind of forced to play against Kazakus Priest. As expected, it was extremely powerful. So essentially people were just playing best of threes because most Kazakus Priests just gonna win anyways against any lineup, and then the 2 remaining decks had to overperform. I played actually his deck on stream today just to get into the mind of Pavel and see how this deck feels. The very first thing that really stands out to me is the no Golaka tag and like no mind vision. When I was playing this deck, I was even beating Pirate Warriors. Golaka Crawler is a very specific card that is just solely in the deck to counter Pirate Warrior and Aggro Druid, and maybe even Token Shaman. If you don't go for Golaka Crawler, I mean, it makes sense if you always go for a Druid ban, if that is your strategy, and even if he has an Aggro Druid, let's say you plan on banning it anyways, then the Golaka becomes much weaker. It is only good versus Pirate Warriors, and then he was probably thinking, how likely is it to face Pirate Warriors? There weren't that many actually. In the top 8 we've actually seen way more control warriors than Pirate Warriors, and you might think, oh my god, this is like not such a big deal. I think every single card in such a high stake tournament makes a huge difference, or can make a potential huge difference. If you end up not drawing the card, then obviously it had no impact on the game, but it can affect your mulligan, it can affect the curse of the game, it can affect your matchups, it can affect your overall win rate. And yeah, as it turned out, it was definitely a really good choice to not go for the Golaka Crawler. I think this is overall just a very solid and powerful list to just pretty much beat anything. I like this list also in the mirror. It has no Tar Creeper on top of no Golaka Crawler, so very cycle heavy. What I've noticed about Pavel is he really likes the Cabal Courier. He was also playing the Cabal Courier during the winter playoffs in his Reno decks. He really seems to be a fan of this card, and when I was playing this card, yeah, it just feels amazing. It gives you all sorts of options. Sometimes you get an additional Prophet Wellen, or just other powerful cards like a Greater Healing Potion in a matchup you need it, or additional Dragonfire Potion. It's just very, very nice, and on top of it, it's close to impossible to play around the card that you got from the Cabal Courier. Let's say you got Jaraxxus. How is your opponent ever going to expect that? And I really wonder if Pavel prioritizes cards like the Cabal Courier because of the information, just abuse his overall skill over his opponent, and then utilize the card in a way where he gets like card advantage, or forces his opponent to do a misplay, because he really likes this card, what I've noticed. Yeah, overall very solid list. The best performing deck, so it's still very interesting how he decided to build this deck, and yeah, very cycle heavy, and I think every single card was very well chosen by him. The next deck we have is his Token Shaman. So this is super interesting for me because Pavel seemed to be the only player in the entire tournament to perform with Shaman, and when I tuned in, he wasn't just like super lucky, he was also drawing patches and, you know, just having normal games, so I wouldn't focus on that whatsoever. I like his list, but this list just seems to be a very normal aggro shaman list. What it might be interesting is that he plays double Bloodlust. A lot of people are going for one Bloodlust now just because you have the Shrall now on top of the double evolve as a win condition, and he goes for one Seronite Chain Gang, so a lot of evolve late game sustain. The most interesting thing is definitely that there's no Stonehill Defender in this deck. This was already a card where people were thinking about cutting, and people started to go for a more like elemental hybrid version just because they didn't like the Stonehill Defenders as much. As soon as Blizzard changed the Jade Spirit to an elemental, people were trying to fit that package in the deck and remove the Doppelgangsters. But I personally also think that the Doppelgangster Evolve is just too strong, especially now with the Thrall Deathseer. Nonetheless, this list should be extremely weak against all sorts of mage control decks, but as I said, his Warlock is also really weak to mage, and this is what is super interesting for me, that yeah, Pavel kind of fit the mage matchup, and we're just focusing on beating the other decks, and it is very impressive that, because there were lineups with Control Paladin and Taunt Warrior and Control Mage, with Priest, and those lineups should be very good versus Shaman, and those lineups have probably defeated most of the Shaman lineups in the tournaments that Pavel managed, you know, beat those lineups. Hunter Race was one of his opponents in the top 8, and he had a mage in his lineup, and yeah, he just defeated him 3-1 as well. So just very, very impressive performance. Yeah, I can't see anything too crazy about this deck. I think the most important things are really that he doesn't play Stonehill Defenders, goes for double Bloodlust, one Serenite Chain Gang, and doesn't go for elementals or anything like that. Just overall very powerful, solid list, and I think he just played and navigated this deck perfectly. And his final deck is his Handlock. This is definitely the most interesting deck because, first of all, to decide on bring a Warlock after everything, go for Warlock over Taunt Warrior, which was also an extremely powerful archetype for the tournament. I believe Taunt Warrior was one of the best performing decks in the tournament. Also, again, one of the only players performing with Warlock and going all the way. It's just super impressive. And yeah, no Kazakus log. He has the demons in it, so it is not just like a strictly handlock, it is kind of like a demon handlock hybrid version. It's like a new archetype that exists now. He likes to run the double Voidwalkers. What I noticed when I played Blood River Gul'dan is you really want to resummon defensive minions if possible, and Voidwalker have taunts. There's actually no good demon with taunt besides the Voidwalker that you can play in your deck. All the other demons with taunt have two huge drawbacks and are very bad standalone cards, and this might be a reason why he decided to go for, you know, just a handlock version. He has very powerful threats with the Mountain Giants and the Twilight Drakes. Interesting is to bring such a deck in a format where you decide on banning Jade Druid, because Mountain Giants and Twilight Drakes are extremely powerful versus Jade Druid. As we all know, Jade Druid doesn't have any heart removal any longer, like no mulch, or very few people run Naturalize, and as we have seen, like almost no list had Naturalize in HCT, that you decide to go with Handlock. Handlock is very powerful actually versus token based decks. With the Hellfires and the File you can clear most boards. It's very powerful versus Shaman, for example. All versions of Shaman should be powerful versus Murloc Paladin. Pretty sure he expected Murloc Paladin. His decks are extremely strong versus Murloc Paladin with the Handlock and the Shaman and the Priest on top of it. He expected probably most people to bring the Kazakus Priest as well. I'm not quite sure how much people expected almost everyone to have Kazakus Priest when they submitted the decks. If that is his read, then Handlock has a lot of, like Demon Handlock has a lot of pressure versus Priest, so he has a very good matchup there. Yeah, Tainted Zetalot, a very powerful combo with the Defile. He has like an overall incredibly powerful deck to take out any mid-rangey board. But yeah, he should still struggle a lot versus mages. The nature of Warlock, you just can't deal with burn damage whatsoever. The Blood River Gul'dan helps a lot for sure if you can get that far. So just super interesting. It's definitely a very powerful list. Has a lot of removal, has the silence, it has a lot of pressure, it has a lot of healing, and yeah, he's like the only one performing with the Handlock and the Shaman. No crazy tech besides the Tainted Zetalot. And again, he decided to go for another Gluttonous Urs. Again, he expected Pirate Warriors for sure, is my opinion. It's just crazy that he decided to go for Handlock and Shaman as the carry decks, and he went undefeated, so it was a good decision. Regardless of that, he faced a lot of difficult matchups and he navigated every series to victories. He is a very powerful player for sure. That's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this analysis. Congratulations to Pavel once again, very well deserved, and let me know in the comments if you want to see more of this kind of content. That's it from me for today, and I'll be back tomorrow with another video, so thanks so much for watching and see you guys then. Peace.